The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Hard Count, presented by BetMGM, the show for college football fans who know when you got those seasonal drinks out and about, you know what I'm talking about, the peppermint milkshake at Chick-fil-A, Starbucks doing whatever they do when it comes to the holiday side of things with their beverages. That's when you know some meaningful college football is being played when it comes to hardware games. That's when you know the transfer portal is right around the corner for opening. That's when you know the National Signing Day is also about to get going. Glad to have you all a part of this, man. College football does not stop. This show doesn't either. We got a lot to jump into, man. We had a flurry, maybe not a flurry, maybe an avalanche is the better word to use, of head coaching hiring activity from Kiffin to LSU, which we all saw coming, but Golesh to Auburn, Sumrall to Florida, heck, Ryan Silverfield to Arkansas. A lot of big moves. I want to give you one big take for each of those moves now. Not all-encompassing, but just some thoughts now here with some of the dust settling on those new hires. Also, we got conference title games to predict, baby. So make sure you're locked in. Make sure you have subscribed. If you're new to the show, welcome. It is exactly what you see here. College football, nothing but college football, year-round. They pay us, and we're not going to ask too many questions as to why they do that when it comes to talking about the greatest sport on the face of planet Earth. So let's get this thing started with the BetMGM game of the week, baby. It's the SEC title game. It's Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's on ESPN in that midday slate. It's Georgia. It's Bama. Georgia now, even with the loss to Bama at home early on in the year, the month of September, by 3 points, favored by 2.5. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, for Georgia, what I just said, you've lost to Kalen DeBoer now after Kirby Smart, not once, but twice. Do we go for 3 in a row? And even going back to the Saban days at Bama, there was always, I think, this uneasy feeling around Georgia of, do we have a Bama problem? And then Saban retires, you say, okay, the Wicked Witch is dead, ding dong the Mario. And then Kalen DeBoer shows up, and like I said, you've gone 0 for 2. If you go 0 for 3 against Bama, against Kalen DeBoer's Bama, that is, if you're Kirby Smart and the boys out there in Athens, I think at that point in time, the conversation of do we have a Bama problem becomes very real. I'll leave it at that. Now, for Alabama, if you can beat Kirby a third time, you can win the SEC Championship your second year in Tuscaloosa if you're Kalen DeBoer. I think you can definitively say, okay, we're back. And not to say the Bama was ever gone because they're going to be at the college football playoff this year, but you say we're back to where we expect to be when it comes to being top tier in the SEC. All right, now, it is just one game. Like I said, Kalen DeBoer in Alabama, they can still win a national title even if they lose this game. But we all understand if you have that SEC trophy or add one of those to the trophy case in Tuscaloosa, it would do a lot, I think, for the approval rating around Kalen DeBoer. You're having conversations with your friends in the group chat any given weekend after this season. You're saying, well, yeah, but Kalen DeBoer has an SEC title to his name. Some good ammo for the group chat. Curious to watch on this thing. Do we see another 15-minute masterpiece from a one Kalen DeBoer? Because in the 2 games that we've seen from DeBoer versus Kirby, Kalen DeBoer's had him in a blender. And the first time it happens, you say, well, okay, it was in Tuscaloosa. You weren't really sure what you were getting with Kalen DeBoer. Jalen Milroe has that whole mobile element that he brings to the table. And they just kind of caught Georgia lacking, right? Jumped up on them 28-0 pretty quick. And then this past season in Athens, when we're all expecting Georgia to kind of have their cleats in the ground, and now Kirby's got a full year of Kalen DeBoer at Bama on tape, and then Alabama, once again, gets the jump on Georgia. They're up 14-0. And the reason why that's important, Georgia won the second half of both those games on the scoreboard. Georgia scored more points than Alabama in the second half. Georgia actually shut out Alabama in the second half of this year's contest. But it didn't matter because Alabama jumped out to such a quick start. Now, I also think it's important to mention this. The fact that was Gunnar Stockton's second ever SEC start, I think you call the game differently if you're Mike Bobo with Gunnar Stockton. The passing in Texas is a great example of that. That is the lowest number of attempts we've seen from Gunnar Stockton this entire year at a flat 20. I would be wildly surprised if we see Gunnar Stockton out there throwing the football 20 times. I think they'll be more aggressive. I think they trust him more. I think the spot in itself caters to a more dangerous Georgia offense, because in that spot now, you get down 14-0, okay, we'd like to just run the football, which is who Georgia wants to be anyway. They ran the football in that game at a really high level, running for over 200 yards, but there wasn't this extra pop off of that with Gunnar Stockton and what I think you trusted him to do, throwing the football downfield, the way that you trust him now. So just keep a pulse on that, because if Bama jumps out to another lead, and you're a Georgia fan, you're saying, what are we doing? How did this happen a third time in a row? We don't want to have to climb back into a game like this against that Ty Simpson offense and against what that Bama defense is slowly but surely seemingly becoming on the back end. For Georgia, if you get down like that, that's the other part of this. You have to then attack the most difficult part of Alabama's defense to attack, in my estimation at least. If I'm Georgia, I want to obviously keep the game close because of how we can kind of play to our strengths in running the football. But at that point in time as well, like, if you have to throw the football, you don't get to attack Bama's run defense. Bama's not been great against the run, giving up right around 4 yards a carry this year. If you can just sit back, run the football, keep it in arm's distance, that favors Georgia. But going back to what I just said, if Bama jumps out to a lead, then Ty Simpson gets to be a little bit more flexible with what they call for him. Then you have to attack Bama's secondary, which is what I believe to be one of the most talented units in college football, regardless of whatever those numbers say, just looking at the personnel. So how does that whole thing ebb and flow from a gameplay perspective? Really curious early on if Kalen DeBoer can get the jump on Kirby Smart once again. Now, we also have to mention this. The growth that both these teams have had since this game happened last has to be mentioned. We say this a lot on the show. Who you are in September is not who you're going to be in November. In this case, not who you're going to be in the month of December playing for a conference championship. Can Alabama just run the football a little bit better? I'm not asking for 200 yards on the ground. I'm not asking for 6 yards a carry. I'm asking for, can we just have something in the ground game to demand some presence in the play action? Because if you can have play action going for Alabama, and you got Horton and Bernard and all those, Latzia Brooks, you'd think Ryan Williams in the spot. We'll see what happens there. If you can get less attention on those individuals with Ty Simpson throwing the football downfield, like this going to be very difficult to stop this Bama offense. But the first time they played now, Bama had 46 yards rushing for the leading rusher, that is, and then one Jam Miller. Now, we'll keep a pulse, obviously, on Jam Miller and his health, but that has to be examined here, because if you're one-dimensional against Georgia, as much as I think the personnel in Bama's receiving room is the advantage in this spot against Georgia's secondary, I don't like the idea of being one-dimensional against a Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann defense for the second time in the same season. I don't think that's going to favor Bama in that spot. Speaking of progress, too, can Georgia do anything to impact Ty Simpson? Because going back to this game, talk about the Sunday after, how you felt if you're a Georgia fan. Hey, we ran the football well. Hey, we actually feel pretty good about Gunnar Stockton here. There's that fourth down call that I know a lot of people were upset by with the personnel, with Cash Jones on the field. I get that. But I think the biggest story coming out of this game the first time around was Bama being elite on third down. 13 of 19, something ridiculous. Why? Because Ty Simpson was back there playing darts. Okay, and even when you got to him, you didn't really get to him to the sense that you could impact him throwing the football downfield. Had 1 sack in this game last week. Last time you played, if you catch my drift here, if you're Georgia. Got to be more than that. Got to be something in this game where you get Ty Simpson off his spot, make him uncomfortable. Honestly, kind of what Auburn was able to do against him. The reason why Auburn was successful against Ty Simpson, they're not great on the back end, but they were able to harass him and make him see ghosts a little bit and kind of flush him out of comfortable situations in the pocket. If you can do that, if you're Georgia, advantage Georgia. If not, be prepared for the same song second verse, and Bama will do what Bama does, and they will throw the football over your head. It'll be a bad vibe for everyone in Athens, Georgia, and everyone in Atlanta that made the trip from Athens, Georgia. Now, I'm curious, too, for Ty Simpson, how aggressive are they early on? Because we keep going back to the first part of this game being so pivotal, because it has been so pivotal the last 2 times these teams have played. But I think the progress of Ty Simpson from what he was in September to what he has been the last couple of, Ty Simpson's got some battle scars now. Ty Simpson knows what it is to be a starting quarterback in the SEC now for a full season. I think if you're Ryan Grubb, you probably already had the full playbook open for him before, but I'm opening this thing up even more than it was in the month of September for Ty Simpson. And the advantage, again, I keep going back to this, the advantage for Alabama is their receivers versus Georgia secondary. I'm going for the throw early from Alabama. I am making it a thing where, hey, Gunnar Stockton, we know you can have that dressed up polo look and you go, match our 40-point production, but I want to test that. I want to go ahead and find out about that here early. I want to put the pressure on Georgia to have to answer scores in a very big way. All right. Now, in picking this game, if you've watched this show, I don't know that I've ever actually picked Alabama to beat Georgia. And in that same vein, I don't think I've ever been correct in picking this matchup. So if you're an Alabama fan, true to what's been said on message boards over the course of, I would imagine, the entirety of this season, I have not had a correct gauge on this matchup. So if you're a Bama fan, you're saying, JD, stay on that side. If you pick us, you jinx us. We don't want you picking us. I think Georgia has evolved since this game. I think Georgia has gotten better than 3 points better than what this game was last time. 24-21 was the score in Athens. I think Georgia has evolved since then. I think they have progressed a lot offensively. I think they've gotten better on the back end and are playing with some confidence, some mojo in terms of when the football's in the air. So Bama fans, I will take your advice. I'll roll with the dogs. I think Georgia wins. I think Georgia ever so slightly covers if that stays at 2.5. I'll take Georgia to win by a field goal. Maybe it's Parker Woodring walking that thing off in Mercedes-Benz. We'll see. Final score, Dogs 30, Tide 27. And Georgia is, for the second year in a row, with a different quarterback, bunch of first and second year players, your SEC champion. Kirby doing what Kirby does, and the Dogs find a way to get it done in their home state. Now, let's go out to a little 1 versus 2 matchup here in the Big Ten title game. Ohio State, a 5.5-point favorite in Lucas Oil against the Indiana Hoosiers, man. On Fox, the nighttime primetime game with Joel Klatt, Gus Johnson. If you're Ohio State and you lose this game, I don't think it takes away any of the great vibes from the Michigan win. I really don't. But it does make it feel a little bit hollow, right? Like losing the Big Ten championship after beating Michigan, it would be the sense of, well, what was that all about? Like, yeah, we snapped the streak. That's great. But it's almost like you dropped the ball before crossing the end zone. Ross Halladay style. What's his name? Glenn Powell. It'll come to us. Doesn't really matter. You hear what I'm saying. Deshaun Jackson, drop the ball before you're getting through the end zone. That would be the vibe here if you're Ohio State, and you don't find a way to finish the trip and win the Big Ten championship when you're favored by, a score. I'll say this. I expect this number to keep going up. I think it'll get up to 6.5 right around kickoff. If you can't get it done if you're Ohio State, it'll be a bad vibe. Let's make that very, very clear. Now, if you're Indiana, I think you have the respect of the college football public. I really do. I think the ranking indicates that. I think everyone that's watched Indiana this season at least understands what they are. They're not last year's Indiana. They're not this paper tiger that they're going to show up and just get boat raced by a good team in Ohio State because they played a good team for the first time here. They've got some real battle scars. But I do think there's still a fragment of the casual viewing population that sees the Indiana logo. They go, oh, yeah, I love Hoosiers. I love that move. It's basketball school, right? Indiana? That's great. The candy cane pants? Awesome. I think that if you can beat Ohio State, and similar to what I said about logos, you beat that logo that's been synonymous with essentially like college football over the course of forever, quite frankly. One of the premier brands in the sport. If you can beat that team in a conference title game, I think at that point it's a mic drop. What are you going to say now? We beat Oregon, beat Ohio State, we beat Penn State. Like, what other questions do you have, Your Honor? We've defended every single case every single week here. And we've done it here in a definitive fashion enough to be undefeated, not just through the regular season, but through the conference title as well. And probably the number 1 seed in the college football playoff there, if you're Indiana. So this, to me, is more of a narrative game for Indiana than anything. Can you just make it a thing where you leave no more doubt in anyone's mind? Because I don't think there's any doubt, rather, in one Kurt Snetty's mind, but that's neither here nor there. Do we see either quarterback rattled for the first time this season? Both of these individuals in Mendoza and Julian, just been cool customers, man. That's not to say they haven't had mistakes in different games. You go back to the Penn State game for Fernando Mendoza, especially that final drive. You take a sack to get the thing started. Not a great look. Julian Sand has had a multi-interception game this year. The second play of the Michigan game wasn't great where there was a pick. But for the most part now, the way these cats respond to adversity, I don't think we've actually ever seen either of them truly rattled. Now, the difference in this game is you have a different test on the defensive side of the football. Both Indiana and Ohio State, respectively, 2 of the best units in college football, both against the run and against the pass. So, as much as I ask, can either side of this rattle the opposing quarterback, how much can either side of this help their quarterback? Because
Ohio State and Indiana, respectively, both top 5 rush defenses. And so there's a world here where that's kind of a stalemate. Neither side can run the football. And it's just like, hey, Julian Saint versus Fernando Mendoza. Figure this out. Quarterback duel. Who's got their best stuff this day? If that's the world you live in, then the matchup also shifts out to the perimeter. And like, do you like Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith, ideally hoping they're continuing to progress and get healthier and healthier? Or do you like Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper? I think it's a pretty fair discussion to say when it comes to how you like this quarterback matchup and how that shakes out. Now, in the same vein, who can get the most creative offensively? Who saved the most here? Brian Hartline, we kept saying this going to the Michigan game. It was not a coincidence that we saw Ohio State run the football more than they have really at any point in time this season from a intentional perspective with Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson, before Michigan, the most carries he had was less than 20. Against Michigan, gets 22, and you see them have 5 yards of carry. You see them look like the more violent team, and that ended up being the difference for them on the line of scrimmage. Now for Indiana, they've kind of been a more intentional team when it comes to how they run the football. They got a stable of backs. You got Hemby. If I can prove the point with how physical they are against Oregon. But in a conference title game now, both teams you would like to think have shown a fair amount. Who can get more creative? Who has the wrinkle to get the other opposing defense a little bit off their game, show them some eye candy, something they haven't seen before, to hit the explosive play that makes the difference? Because, y'all, to be honest, with both of these defenses being so elite, I don't think either side is scoring more than 30. I think this game is probably played in the 20s. So when the margins are that thin, it sometimes does come down to a trick play. Sometimes it does come down to a different look that ends up being a tendency breaker, ends up in the explosive play category, and ends up being the reason why you win the football game. So is it Mike Shanahan or Brian Hartline that has a little bit more saved in the chamber there to end up being the difference in the game? Now, this is just pretty a feel for me now. I mentioned the idea of a stalemate in the trenches, going back to quarterback play and skill players. It feels a little bit like it's been too quiet on the Jeremiah Smith front as of late, doesn't it? They say, JD, he's been dinged up. I hear you. I understand that. But 7 catches and 80 yards the last 2 games. Now, if he's less healthy than I am perceiving him to be, then obviously this is a moot point. But I'm just getting the vibe right now that if in the biggest game of your season to this point now, after beating Michigan, you make sure you accentuate your best player. And I go back to the Rose Bowl game where it became very obvious Ohio State had figured it out. Hey, when we get Jeremiah Smith the football, doesn't matter how it looks, whether it's off of play action, throw it to him in the flat, whether it's off of isolating him with trips to the other side, and we got him just one-on-one with someone on an island. When we do that, good things happen. I would be shocked if in this spot, with the best defense Ohio State's played to this point in the year, they don't make a concerted effort to get Jeremiah Smith double-digit touches, however it looks. I think Jeremiah Smith has a big game in this spot. I really do. Now, does his big game equate to Ohio State scoring 25 and Indiana scoring 28? Remains to be seen. But I think that's something to watch for here. I think they're going to make sure Jeremiah Smith gets his. Now, Carnell Tate could get his as well. We've seen him be the Batman to Jeremiah Smith's Batman. Notice I didn't say Batman to Robin. I think Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate complement each other in a really elite way. When there's attention on Jeremiah Smith in a reverse, and we got some eye candy in the backfield, and Carnell Tate's all by his lonesome in the end zone, you see how that complements each other. But I think in this spot now, they'll make a more concerted effort to get the football to Jeremiah Smith. But with that being said, when it comes to the battle on the back end here, Ohio State, the best defense when it comes to yards per pass in college football, Indiana number 14. So say what you want about the teams that Ohio State's played to this point. This is a different level, I think, of test when it comes to the personnel on the back end that Ohio State's had to play. All right. So last thought here before we get to our prediction. What is the impact of the lead-in for both? Because I think for Indiana, you look at who they've played, and they've had a solid filter, I think, on their season to this point. You beat Oregon at Oregon by 10 points. Cool. Check that box. Have a good back and forth with Penn State at Penn State. Cool. Check that box. But the game against Penn State was in early November. The game against Oregon was October. Indiana hasn't really been challenged here in a minute. They've been the number 1 team when it comes to margin of victory in college football here, from what I've gathered, for the majority of November. So for Indiana, are you fresh because you haven't had to play anybody too rigorous, or are you maybe a little bit cold? Maybe you haven't had the warm-up sets you need to get ramped up for lifting the heavyweight against Ohio State. Is that the case? Because if you're cold now, you're not beating Ohio State. make that very clear. Same thing can be said for Ohio State. Are you just now starting to ramp up? Are you warm now because you played Michigan? And now at this point, run game is rolling. Whole team has a little bit of extra swagger and confidence because you got the monkey off your back that was Michigan the last 4 years. Or is it a world where you exerted a little bit of energy? Maybe you beat Michigan, but a piece of you is left in Ann Arbor with that Michigan win. Do we see Ohio State come out of this thing and maybe it's an emotional hangover, maybe it's a physical hangover? I don't know. Just food for thought there. Which side of this do we see impact Ohio State and Indiana when it comes to their lead-in? Mendoza is an absolute surgeon, and I think it's going to be a phenomenal battle seeing him pre-snap with Caleb Downs and where they line him up at and how Fernando Mendoza maybe throws away from him, or maybe they try to draw plays up to put him in a bind in different coverages. Like, I'm excited to watch that battle, and Fernando Mendoza, make it a very, very clear, he could be the difference in this game, where he just shows up, he diagnoses it all. Matt Patricia, you reach, I teach, this is how it goes. Fernando Mendoza wins the football game for you from what he's doing upstairs, because that dude is sharp as a freaking tack. You listen to him talk. But with that being said, I cannot get out of my mind's eye what Ohio State was against Michigan. They were multiple. They were physical as all get out on the offensive side of the football. They added, I think, even another prong with their offensive attack. They're so multiple. And going back to what I said about the lead-in here, I think this is the phase of the year for Ohio State where they're really starting to kick. This is the part of the year where Ohio State, yeah, they've had the drive phase the first part of the year where it's just, hey, just win. Just beat Washington, beat Texas that first game of the year, get to the middle part of your schedule where you could just kind of get your bearings and start to blow some teams out and ramp things up for the Michigan game. It is go time now for Ohio State. They checked the first box in this kick phase for them with all gas, no brakes, beating Michigan, and I think the Big Ten title game is more of the same. I think Ohio State wins. I think it's a great game. I think it's probably within a score, but I still think Ohio State covers. Final score, Buckeyes 27, Hoosiers 20 in Lucas Oil. Ohio State finishes a perfect season with a Big Ten championship. They will be the number one seed in the college football playoff. Wire to wire, from the first rankings reveal show to the last rankings reveal show, Ohio State, your number one seed in the college football playoff, and your Big Ten champions. So there you have it. Now, we got a couple more predictions for you in conference title games a little bit later on. But before we do that, I want to get to some of these coaching hires, man, because there's some big moves. This cycle, to me, is so reminiscent of that 2022 hiring cycle where you had Napier to Florida, you had Kelly to LSU, you had Freeman to Notre Dame, you had Cristobal to Miami, like just a bunch of big jobs. And quite frankly, a couple of big names with Lincoln Riley included in that mix. Just a lot of big jobs that got filled, a very noisy carousel. This, to me, feels on par with that. I want to give you a couple of my just big takes here for each of these big hires across the board. We'll start with the biggest hire, which is Lane Kiffin to LSU. We saw this coming. You saw this coming. We predicted it, I want to say, the week before it happened, that he would eventually be the head coach in Baton Rouge. And my take here with this is the personality match for what LSU expects of their football team and who Lane Kiffin is. To me, it is just chef's kiss, creme de la creme. No notes here, because I said this on the reaction to him being hired. LSU at their very best is, we don't care who you are. We don't care who you are. We don't care what your logo is. We don't care what the spread is. We're showing up. We got Honey Badger, don't care, Tyrann Mathieu about to roll down here and return punts and knock your block off over the middle. We're going to bring 7 at you. Like, there's a certain aggressive brand of ball and aggressive personality that LSU played with that was just so obviously missing with Brian Kelly. And hand up, I missed that. That's on me. When they hired him, I thought it was going to be structure. I thought it was going to be poise and culture. It wasn't that. It was just it felt like a watered-down version of what you've come to expect from LSU when they're at their best. Now, I say that to then say Lane Kiffin, I think, brings exactly that. And some of it is he just beats to his own drum in the same way that LSU beats to their own drum. They tailgate for 3 days before Alabama. He's doing hot yoga every single morning. He's tweeting. He's trolling. And some of that is just the Lane Kiffin experience. But quite frankly, I think it marries perfectly with the LSU experience. Lane Kiffin does not give a fudge as to what the blueprint has been for successful coaches in college football. I go back to this take I had like several years ago when we did this show independently in a lobby in Waco, Texas. Lane Kiffin is like that new popular kid at school, but he's not popular for the same ways that like the other jocks are popular or the class president is popular. Like Lane Kiffin's popular because he's a little bit hipster, a little bit eclectic. Like, there's a part of Lane Kiffin that you just look at because it's so different and it's so out of the mold. And it's like, this is bizarre to me to watch because of the shock value, but also it's bizarre because it's working and they're winning. And that way, it's cool because it's getting results. So the point I'm making here, you sort of put LSU and Lane Kiffin in their own lanes, in their own categories. Like Lane Kiffin as a head coach, you're not really supposed to live through the portal. You're not really supposed to troll the opposing coach. You're not really supposed to tweet as much as he tweets, but he does, and it works. And same deal for LSU and how they operate. You're not really supposed to, be so exclusive to. You're not. I'll say this: you're not really your own school in your own state as authoritatively as LSU is. But the way that they're able to lock down Baton Rouge and win at the highest level in Baton Rouge, I think that in itself speaks to what they are as a brand and as an overall football program. So when you talk about how it's going to work at LSU, I do want to say this. I think now you are in this phase, if you're LSU, where you have already won the lottery in terms of what this carousel was. Like Lane Kiffin was the lottery for a lot of different schools. It was Florida, it was Ole Miss, LSU, you got that winning ticket. And you hear so often about how people win the lottery, and then the downstream of that is just, and quite frankly, it's awful. People talk about how the money changed them and they had a different expectation, and just everything after them winning the lottery just went to the dogs, okay? The reason why, in my estimation, having never won the lottery, you fell in love with the idea of having money as opposed to what having money would actually bring you and using it for a positive overall outcome for your life. You've fallen in love with the idea of Lane Kiffin. Now, for the better part of, I would have to guess, a month, since Brian Kelly got fired, you fell in love with the idea of Lane Kiffin. That's all well and good. But now it's time to ride the wave, be all in, and use this whole experience and invest in this experience, quite frankly, if you're LSU, for the good of your football program. All right? Because Lane Kiffin, like I just said, it's not going to be anything similar to what other coaches in college football are doing with how you recruit, with how he operates. And what I would say if you're an LSU fan is lean in. Lean into the Lane Kiffin experience. Because quite frankly, this could be a till death do us part for both sides. Like we said this when Lane Kiffin was mulling over these options. If he had taken the Florida job or the Ole Miss job or the else, like if Lane Kiffin is who you believe he's going to be in Baton Rouge, he's probably not leaving for anything anytime soon outside of the NFL. And even that's a different conversation of itself that I don't think you can really predict at this point in time. Like if like you don't leave LSU for any other job in college football. And so my point in all this is get comfortable, ride the wave. If there's some things that happen that you don't 100% love or align with, take a deep breath, understand that was already going to happen because you hired Lane Kiffin, and that's kind of who he is. It's going to be some ebbs and some flows, but just understand you hired him for a reason. You hired him because of what he does when it comes to acquiring talent through the portal, and you hired him because of offensive acumen. If you have the Lane Kiffin offensive acumen and you're able to retain the level of personnel that you've had on the defensive side there historically for LSU, you're winning national championships. You are. And that's the last thing I want to say on this whole Lane Kiffin side of things. I understand, if you're an Ole Miss fan, why you feel the way you feel about Lane Kiffin. 100%. I would have executed it differently. I wouldn't have tweeted. I wouldn't have gone on McAfee. I wouldn't have drawn it out quite the same way. I understand all of that. But at the very base level for Lane Kiffin, Cato and I were talking before the show, man, this move to LSU means he wants to be great. Not that he couldn't have been great at Ole Miss, but he mentioned something in an interview with Marty Smith, talking about how he was mulling over this decision, talking to people he respects and trusts like a Nick Saban and a Pete Carroll. And he said, Pete Carroll said, take the shot. Take the shot. Meaning, this is your shot at a job, at a place, and a logo and a brand that is synonymous now with national championships. The last three coaches, outside of Brian Kelly, have won national championships. So Lane Kiffin is taking this job not just to win one, but to win multiple. Now, will that happen? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. And I'd love to sit here and say it's going to happen, but quite frankly, I don't know. I picked out on the national championship in the preseason, and we're talking about a new head coach. So you see where I'm going with this. But Lane Kiffin's desire to have a job with expectations of a national championship every single year, I respect him for it, man. Because he could have very easily stayed at Ole Miss and been comfortable winning 10 games, 11 games, gotten the statue, all that. It would have worked. It would have been great. He could have won national championships there too. But I think there's something to be said for aligning yourself with a brand, a logo, and a place, and quite frankly, a fan base that if we're not winning national championships, what the heck are we doing? I love that for Lane Kiffin. I think he wants that. I think he desires that. I think, quite frankly, professionally, he needs that. And for that reason, I think it's going to work. I think it's going to be greatness. So it's the personality match you need. Yeah, it's different. It might be bumpy at times. No, I mean, there's no perfect marriage, no perfect relationship. There might be some ebbs and flows. There might be some times where you want to send a mean voicemail to them and tell them how you feel, but just understand this is a long game. Lane Kiffin took this job for the long game, and if it goes how we all think it's going to go, this might be Lane Kiffin's last job in college football. And if you're LSU, this might be the last coach you have for quite some time. All right, so I can't wait to watch how it unfolds, but the final take there, the big picture take I have, I guess, for Lane Kiffin and LSU is I love the personality match, and I think it's going to work. All right, but it all starts now. Real life starts now. You won the lottery. No more idea. It starts now. All right, we're moving right along here. John Sumrall to Florida was not one I had on my bingo card necessarily. I thought he was going to be maybe in the Auburn mix, but that news breaks on Sunday morning, and it's just a beautiful thing that happens now. Florida's got themselves a head coach. It's Tulane's John Sumrall. Now, John Sumrall is going to coach in the American Athletic Conference title game. We'll see what happens after that when it comes to Tulane's potential college football playoff aspirations. Here's my big take on John Sumrall in Florida. He's not Billy Napier. I know that's like the easy take. I know that's the low-hanging fruit for different people that don't like this hire is, oh my gosh, we're just right back where we started with Billy Napier. We hired the G5 guy. What are we doing? Saying John Sumrall is Billy Napier because he's a G5 coach is like saying that all mammals are the same. It's like saying a human and a whale are the same. They're not the same at all. Like, yeah, there's a similar like tree there, I suppose, with they both are warm-blooded and give milk to their young, but they're not the same by any stretch of the imagination here. Couple of examples why. Let's start with the basics. Billy Napier comes from the offensive side of the football, played his college football at Furman. John Sumrall was a linebacker at Kentucky in the freaking SEC. Okay, so there's that part of this. Billy Napier, offensive coach. John Sumrall, defensive coach. Billy Napier had success at the G5 level, but truly it was only at one job in Louisiana. And he did a great job at Louisiana. I'm not telling you to do revisionist history, but you look at John Sumrall. I personally, when it comes to assessing head coaches, I like seeing them be successful at different places because that means the common denominator wasn't the place. It wasn't the AD was great and gave them what they needed. It wasn't the recruiting territory was great and that was all something that worked out. It works at Troy. It works at Tulane. Okay, common denominator here is John Sumrall. Not to say anything less than Billy Napier, but my point is you have more data on John Sumrall being a successful head coach at different spots. So there's a difference there. Billy Napier, remember the whole gripe with the good folks in Gainesville of he wants to call plays, he won't give up play calling. Florida's like, hey, Billy, you got to give up play calling. He's like, yeah, for sure. DJ Lagway, go ball out here to finish the 2024 season. Do I still have to give up play calling? No? Okay, we're good. John Sumrall's not calling plays. John Sumrall's a CEO. John Sumrall is a culture guy. John Sumrall is a run-through-the-wall kind of guy. John Sumrall is not holding on to a play calling sheet and saying, I got to be on the headset to make sure we have the right scheme dialed up. He'll be involved, but he's not going to be the play caller now for the defensive side of the football, or the offensive side for that matter. Now, here's maybe as important as anything else when it comes to the difference between John Sumrall and Billy Napier. They're walking into different situations. How many times did we talk about this when Billy Napier first got the job at Florida? Give him time. Give it a second. Doesn't have a roster yet. He's cleaning up the mess before him. He's trying to push this thing back to neutral before they can get to positive. John Sumrall's walking into a spot that he can win right away. Right away. Like if he's able to retain some of that talent on that roster, there's good players in Gainesville to win you football games tomorrow. I know the record sucks if you're Florida based on what you thought you were going to do this year. That record is not reflective at all of what you have on that roster to work with. And John Sumrall, in the same way, he has done more with less, and he's done more with less consistently. I go back to Tulane last year. Great year, right? Darian Mensah, Mekhi Hughes, Tulane's rolling, and then the portal happens. When you have success at a G5 level as a player, guess what? Other schools come knocking, and those schools have big bags to throw at you. John Sumrall is like, hey, happy for you. Run that back, Turbo, in the American Athletic Conference title game this year. He doesn't need to have it all teed up perfectly for him to have success at the highest level. Okay, so you would like to have that be the case here, but just understand now, if you can do more with less, my take has always been you can do more with less. What can you do if we give you more? Can you do more with more? Now, it's not a straightforward equation, but I think that logic is a lot more in line with who John Sumrall is and would get me excited if I'm a Florida fan. Now, here's the other thought that people have around John Sumrall, and I understand where it comes from because you've been burned before on this front if you're a Florida fan. Is he going to be a maniacal recruiter? And my answer to that is from everyone that I've talked to that has had an interaction with John Sumrall, I think he's just maniacal in general about everything. Like, John Sumrall is a how you do anything is how you do everything kind of guy. He strikes me as someone who is going to be as intense as all get out on all fronts, recruiting very much so included. Also, you don't take the job at Florida if you're not going to recruit the state. Like, understand that Florida wouldn't have made that mistake. Wouldn't have made that mistake twice, I suppose, when you speak to Dan Mullen. Last thing here, he's a Saturday guy. He's a Saturday guy. Florida, how often did you win every day of the week besides Saturday? We got a great roster. We did the right things retaining our guys, not having them hit the portal. Got a great recruiting class. Hey, we even like our staff, man. Shoot, we got a good group of guys here calling the show. However, it came to Saturdays, and whether it was a play calling thing, whether it was an execution thing, whether it was a focus thing, losing to USF, I don't know how you want to divvy it up in terms of responsibility for not winning on Saturdays. But John Sumrall is a Saturday guy. He's going to make the difference on game day for you. The difference for Florida hasn't been the roster. Florida's always had muscle, had bad form now. Doesn't matter if you can got a leg press of 500 if you don't have a strong core and good form to actually squat 500. You're squatting 500 now with John Sumrall, to put it simply. So I think he's a temp changer. I think he can win right now. And I think that 42-11 record over 2 different jobs should be encouraging for you. And I think John Sumrall, I get the Billy Napier Association and he's from the G5 and he coached in the Sun Belt previously before Tulane. I get all that. But I'm telling you, not the same person at all. And if that's your take, I think it's a lazy take, and I would advise you to do some more research on a John Sumrall. Next up, now this hire got me fired up, man, just to put it simply. And I'm glad that I got the fan base fired up as well. Alex Golesh to Auburn. One big take here. This is exactly what the doctor ordered. Exactly what the doctor ordered. We'll break it all down right now. Before we do that, they'll make sure you're subscribed. If you're a college football sicko, welcome home. We're talking carousel. We're talking portal when that opens up. Expect Auburn to be a player there. We're talking everything about the greatest sport on the face of planet Earth every single day, including your Auburn Tigers. Make sure you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. Appreciate y'all being dialed in, man. Again, my one big take. This is exactly what the doctor ordered. What Auburn needed at the most basic level is someone at the head coaching position that was going to allow them to win the moments that would allow them to win the games. Auburn's been right there. You got PTSD if you're an Auburn fan hearing how close you are for the better part of the last year and a half. You're close, right? And that wasn't a lie. I mean, anyone with eyes can see Auburn losing 6 one-score games this year, not even counting the loss to Georgia that was by 10 points, where you're up in the end of the first half. Like, Auburn's close. But why have they failed to finish games? Failed to finish games because they failed to have the extra things that allow you to finish games, which is what? All the stuff that has nothing to do with actually playing football. Like, you can drop a great scheme, you can drop a great roster when it comes to how you put it together, but if you don't have the other stuff, quote unquote, when it comes to culture, when it comes to energy, when it comes to the finish, you're not going to end up winning those games that are one score. It's not a coincidence that Georgia's great in one-score games, okay? Alex Golesh now, looking at his record in one-score games, winning record. Before this season at USF, he was 3-1 in one-score games. And I'll say this, persona of your leadership is the persona of your football team. I like Hugh Freeze. I'll say that again. I like Hugh Freeze, the human being. He was always great to us on this show. But what Auburn needs in terms of what they are right now, they need a freaking killer. And everyone you talk to about Alex Golesh, that is the same thing that said. Hey, he's intense. I mean, his story overall with coming to America from Russia, like all that, like didn't play football, just freaking got it out the mud. Everything about Alex Golesh screams he's about that life. We're going to find a way. That's been his entire career, quite frankly, going to find a way, whether it's at Tennessee and he's the OC there under Josh Heupel, whether it's been turning around USF, finding a way is who Alex Golesh is. And you look at what he's done, too, when it comes to what USF is. Has it been the epitome of winning conference titles every year at South Florida? No. But I think Alex Golesh, understanding what it is to turn a football team around, they won 8 games the 4 years before he was there. That's abysmal. The thing I like about Alex Golesh and the track record and getting USF into where they have been this year, competing for a college football playoff spot at different points throughout the season, he knows where to look to make the key fixes. Like, the thing with Auburn, going back to what I said about the roster, the talent is great. And I know you're probably tired of hearing that at Auburn, too. Good roster, that's great. We finished where we finished in recruiting. Can we freaking win some games, please? I hear all that. I think for for Alex Golesh and his resume, it speaks to understanding the tweaks within a program that get more out of your talent, that get more out of your football team, get more out of those specific moments that allow you to get it done. I think Auburn hired hungry here with a G5 head coach. I do. And I don't say hungry in the sense that, they hired someone who, is going to leave them hungry. I think you hired someone who's hungry to prove themselves in Alex Golesh. Like, you don't take the Auburn job unless you're hungry to prove yourself. Like, Alex Golesh could have stayed at USF. He could have waited for a different job that had been less pressure, smaller logo, whatever, which is counter to any head coach in college football, but it's a thing you could say. I think he wanted the Auburn job because of the challenge that it is. And I think that itself is encouraging for your hire in A1, Alex Golesh. All right? Now, when we speak about the X's and O's side of things, at a base level, I appreciate you hired for offense. We'll see. At the time of us recording this, there's no official word on DJ Durkin, so if it's changed since then, more power to you. You hired for offense because in modern college football now, as much as defense is crucial and wins championships, it's proven that offense gets you to the college football playoff. 4 of the 5 teams from the SEC that are going to be in the dance, they all score 31 points a game or more. The one exception there is Oklahoma, and they're just ridiculous on the defensive side of the football. It's not really the blueprint you want to follow. If you want to be in the college football playoff, you got to score. And Alex Golesh, coming from that side of the ball, I'm encouraged by that. I'm also encouraged by that because if I'm trying to keep Cam Coleman, trying to keep Deuce Knight, trying to keep Malcolm Simmons, I think a defensive head coach is making the same pitch that Alex Golesh can make. Alex Golesh is talking about what they did in 2022 with Jalen Hyatt winning the Biletnikoff, Hendon Hooker being an NFL draft pick. Like, Alex Golesh has got some real skins on the wall here that he can speak to. And say, hey, listen, if you want to hit the portal, probably not what he's saying, but he's probably can give them some version of this pitch. If you want to hit the portal, go for it. But understand, we're going to score points here. Understand, I know what it looks like to score points here. Understand, I know what it looks like to develop receivers and quarterbacks and all those things. So, hey, be my guest, but understand you're missing out. You're missing out if you leave us here at Auburn. Auburn, for the last couple of years, feel like they've always been a variable away. Like with Harsin, there's no alignment here between the football people and the admin people and the staff. There wasn't a line. So you're like, Auburn, we got all this firepower. Why can't we get on the same page and make it go? And then Hugh Freeze gets there. You got alignment. You got roster. You got muscle. But then you're looking at the on-field product. Like, there doesn't seem to be the juice or the personality or the kick the door down kind of vibe we need here for Auburn. I think Alex Golesh brings you all that you were missing. Brings you all that you're missing. It's a personality thing. It's exactly what the doctor ordered. It's offense. It's hunger. It's edge. The hat that Alex Golesh wears on game days for South Florida, it's not a coincidence now. I understand it's kind of a South Florida thing. No one's making Alex Golesh wear that hat. No one's making him operate the way he operates. So I love this for Auburn. I think it's exactly what you needed, and I think it checks the box in a massive way. And hear me clearly, too. I think Auburn can win right now as well. So we'll see what happens there. But Auburn in a good spot here going forward with Alex Golesh running the show. One more big picture take for you here on the hires from this past Sunday. Arkansas, they made a move, jumped in the pool, made a little bit of a splash, not in the most positive way for the Arkansas faithful, in hiring Ryan Silverfield, head coach at Memphis. Now, here's my big take on this. It's okay to not have a strong opinion on Ryan Silverfield. And listen, I get it. If you're an Arkansas fan, this is not the big swing that you wanted. This isn't the big name that you wanted. This isn't the big resume that you wanted. It felt like, based on what I'm reading on the message boards, a bit of a lazy hire. Is again, based on what I'm hearing the Arkansas fan base say. There was a protest on Arkansas's campus about this hire. It sounds like it was somewhat small in terms of the actual protest of it, but it was a protest nonetheless. You just hired a head coach. Again, it's okay to not have a super strong opinion on Ryan Silverfield, because even with the way that it feels of everything I just said, quote-unquote lazy hire, quote-unquote not the big name, all those things, what are you mad about with hiring Ryan Silverfield? And I don't mean that in jest or sarcastic, like genuinely. I think what people are upset about with Ryan Silverfield is who he's not. He's not the big SEC name or the up-and-coming coordinator or the splashy hire in a positive sense. The reason why I think people are upset with Ryan Silverfield is, again, what I just said, who he's not. He's not James Franklin. He's not Alex Golesh. Though, for the record, he is 3-0 against Alex Golesh, neither here nor there. If you're an Arkansas fan, keeping track at home. If you were to just look at it in a vacuum, is there anything on Ryan Silverfield's resume to truly be upset about? Like, genuinely. I mean, 50-25 as a head coach. Right around 68% winning percentage at Memphis. Coached Memphis for 6 years, right? So that's a lot of football. And you're saying, well, JD, but like took over a place was already in a pretty good spot, right? Yeah, I hear you, but also it wasn't all good vibes when he was there. You had a 2-year lull, give or take, in 2021, 2022, won like 6 or 7 games. Coached out of that lull, adapted, got his team back to where they expect to be at Memphis, winning double-digit football games. He's had not one but 2 different jobs in the NFL. I think that should mean something. If people in the NFL want you on their staff, I don't think you're bad at football. That's the first part of this. Beat Arkansas this year. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and say that. Like, you beat the school that you are now the head coach of. So if you want to hold that against him, be my guest. I'm not saying this was a home run hire. I'm not saying this is going to work. I'm not saying you need to be happy about it. Here's the other thing, too. I'm not saying the administration went about it the right way. One of the most valid frustrations I've heard is that the fan base didn't want Ryan Silverfield. And so they're frustrated that they don't feel heard. I get that. You don't feel heard by the people making decisions. I totally understand that when you're paying hard-earned money to be in the seats in Fayetteville. Like, I get that. I totally understand that. But I keep going back to this. It's okay to not have a strong opinion on this right now. Not that you have to be happy about it. Not that you have to be overwhelmingly joyful that you got Ryan Silverfield as your head coach. But I just, looking at this resume, can you tell me with definitive confidence and a definitive nature about yourself this isn't going to work? You don't have to like it, but are you telling me it's not going to? We don't know. We don't know. And so as much as I'm saying, hey, we don't know and it could work, and in some ways you if you want to be optimistic about this thing, maybe you trust the powers that be at Arkansas. Again, I'm not telling you what to do, but that'd probably be the most positive way to go about it if that's what you're looking for. Hey, Coach Silverfield, we got to win right now because you do not have the room behind you. There is not this court of popular opinion that you're winning in this current status in Fayetteville. And I don't even know that it's your fault. I think you're probably fired up to have a job in Fayetteville and to be in the SEC, and 1,000%. I think it's fair to say that you've earned this, what you did at Memphis. But we gotta give this fan base something to cheer for right now. And I don't mean right now in the sense of next fall. I mean right now, like, let's go make a splash in the transfer portal. Let's go play ball and put together a roster to get the vibes back on your side, to get some optimism back in Fayetteville. Because, like, honestly, that's one of the things that I like about him. The fact that he's had to deal with NIL, with what he was doing at Memphis, with the FedEx money and having all that backing him. Like, I like that part of it. I don't think he's going to walk into the situation and have super wide eyes and a sped up heart rate and saying, okay, wait, I got how much money to put my roster together? Oh, wait, hang on. I've never had these NIL conversations before. I don't think that'll be the world that he lives in. So, Ryan Silverfield, we got to win right now, not just on the field, but in terms of, like, the moment itself. We got to give this fan base something to chew on, something to get behind you for, and Godspeed, Ryan Silverfield, because at this point in time, there's not a lot of backing from what I can gather based on this fan base. But again, I would just ask this of the fan base. Can we give it a second to marinate? Can we choose to not have a strong opinion and to have the take that's going to win today? Can we just give it a second, let it breathe, see where this thing goes in a few months, see where you're at in spring football, see where you're at in October, and then we can maybe have a little bit more of a take on the whole Ryan Silverfield era at Arkansas. So again, I'm not telling you this was a great hire. It wouldn't have been my first choice if we're all aligned here. It was not my first choice. But even with that being said, let's let it play out. Let's let cooler heads prevail. And maybe that's a ridiculous thing to say in the world of college football, but it's how I feel about this whole thing right now when it comes to where Arkansas is and the head coach they just hired. So let's finish thing out talking a little bit of the conference title weekend now. We got a couple more games to break down and predict. We'll start with the Big 12 title game, man. Jerry World, 11 a.m. local on ABC. Having been to this game as a fan, this game being the first game of conference title Saturday is just fun. Like, you're almost you're the first piece of the puzzle to go into the college football playoff picture. Someone's going to punch their ticket definitively. It might be BYU. I think if Texas Tech loses, they're still probably in there. According to BetMGM, 13.5-point favorite, favoring the Red Raiders. Now, these teams played in the early parts of November, 29-7 for Texas Tech in Lubbock is how that whole thing went. So if you're BYU, what I just said a second ago, I don't know if you are in the college football playoff if you lose this game. You might be, but here's the thing. I wouldn't want to find out. Like, remove all doubt. Kalani Sitake and the boys, go punch your ticket. Go win the Big 12 and let everyone else figure out how the at-large bid's going to shake out and who gets in where and what happens with Notre Dame. Like, just win your conference, BYU. Get the second one of this head-to-head and find a way to just punch your ticket definitively. Now, for Texas Tech, I think, like I just said, I think you're in. I think you're in even if you lose this game. I think most people that watch football watch Texas Tech and say, yeah, top 12 team in America. However, I think you are also a little bit now fighting the narrative of everything that comes with the Big 12 right now. And I'm not telling you that's valid. I'm just saying it's the reality. And so if you lose to BYU, a lot of people will revisit Texas Tech and, well, how good are they actually? And, well, what can they actually be in the context of this tournament? Again, I still think you're in, but I wonder what it would do to your seeding if you lost this game to BYU. Neither here nor there. It's not complex for BYU, man. You got to be able to run the football. It's who you are. You're a 56% run-the-ball team. Everything that you want to do is downstream of establishing something on the ground now. Okay, now we could talk about all the positives of what would happen if you can run the football and explosive plays happen and you get Bachmeier comfortable. Let's be a little bit doomsday-ish here, though. What if BYU can't run the football, like what happened round one of this game, where you had 67 yards rushing as a team? Well, at that point, you're not having the shot plays downfield, more than likely. You're probably not living in ideal third down situations. You're letting that Texas Tech front seven absolutely hunt Bear Bachmeier on third down. The game can get out of hand very quickly if you can't establish something on the ground. I like Bear Bachmeier. I like that he says he's a healthy 260 if that's the case. But I don't like that when you have to drop back and try to throw your way back into the game against this Texas Tech defense, man. I don't love it at all. Can you control the game flow a little bit, BYU? Still, I don't need you to blow Texas Tech out. Again, all we're trying to do here is find a way to win the football game with a 2-touchdown spread against us. Can you slow the game down, make Baron Morton and the boys watch for the Texas Tech offense, and control the line of scrimmage when it comes to time of possession? That's all I'm looking for here for BYU. Now, I say that I also look at the potential for this game flow when it comes to Texas Tech and their ability to score. If this game is played in the 30s, I don't love that for BYU. I think that favors Texas Tech on every single level. And with that being said, I also don't think that BYU is going to do a great job hanging with the skill players of Texas Tech. Going back to that first game, again, explosive plays, I think you take with a grain of salt because there's so many different variables that go into it. Was it BYU had a bad matchup on defense they found themselves in that game? Is it busted coverage? Is it broken tackles? There's so many things you could assign it to. But when you see the frequency of explosive plays that Texas Tech had through the air, 39, 37, 25 yards, 24 yards, 18 yards, those were all in one game for Texas Tech against BYU. So maybe BYU bosses up a little bit and uses that film to improve their strategy and come out with a different scheme to try and confuse Baron Morton. But, y'all, to be real, I still don't like that matchup for BYU. So we got to fix that, but I just want to make sure this is said out loud before the game even happens. I don't like that for BYU. I think that's a big reason why you see the spread favoring Texas Tech by right around 2 touchdowns. All right, now, y'all seen Iron Man? I'm sure you have. I need Jarvis to be a factor here for Bear Bachmeier. We got to help Bear Bachmeier out here, y'all. I just told you, I don't love the drop-back passing game here for BYU straight up. I don't love the idea of just running the football and having that be the only way of attack for BYU in this spot. If I'm BYU, I need the move the pocket kind of game plan for Bear Bachmeier to get him out on the perimeter, give him a chance to protect himself and run away from that front seven for Texas Tech. I need the ball out quick. I need quarterback run, maybe settle him in and also kind of keep Texas Tech on their heels. I need us to do something, BYU. Going back to this idea of you need to run the football and just create some settled situations for Bear Bachmeier. I need us to do something here to create livable third and down or third down and distance. Because the thing with BYU is I actually like a lot of their skill players. Like Chase Roberts is a dude. Parker Kingston, dude. They have explosive playmakers on the perimeter, but the reality is if you're not living in a third and we can do whatever we want to do here, we can call run or pass, it's hard to really maximize that with how good this Texas Tech defense is. Because if I'm not worried about you running the football, guess what? I'm not honoring you running the football. That's just the reality. Like if we're living in 3rd and 7 plus, I can sit back, I can just play the pass, we can live that way. And so when that happens now, I don't get to maximize Kingston and Roberts. That's a big reason why BYU lost the game last time. They were 3 of 14 on third down. It's not going to cut it. So going back to what I was saying, you have to be able to find something on the ground to make Texas Tech honor the run game, to then be able to maximize your skill players on the perimeter, which, again, I think are pretty good. It's just a matter of can you get to situations down in distance where you're able to get them the football and allow them to impact the game. Texas Tech, I'm not going to excuse what happened last time y'all played when it came to taking field goals, man. How many times did Texas Tech get the football in a favorable situation and just get 3? Drove to the red zone multiple times, got 3. Here's the thing about taking field goals over touchdowns. You're just asking for bad things to happen. You're just asking for bad things to happen. Like at a certain point, it's like I have a lot of friends that, for whatever reason, don't lock their car and leave their keys in their car. It's like, okay, you didn't get your car stolen tonight, but what about the next day? And then like, at a certain point, you're going to get got if you're only taking 3 and not getting into the end zone. Because if you're getting 7 against this team, okay, we're going to have a chance now. With that defense that Texas Tech has, if you're able to play from a lead, it's going to be a good time in Jerry World on Saturday. It will be. Believe you me. But if you're taking 3, you could leave the back door open for Bear Bachmeier. I told you about the skill players that I like for BYU. You give them a chance to get in rhythm and to climb back into this game. Because I'll tell you what, with Kalani Sitake being the head coach, BYU's not going to quit. They don't care what the spread is. They don't care where the game's played. They don't care what the stakes are. They don't care where you're ranked. Here's the thing, too. I don't think they care what happened last time, does BYU. I think BYU's going to show up with bad intentions, and they'll try to force the issue. So what's our pick in this game? I think BYU is going to be scrappy. I think Bear Bachmeier will be improved from that first performance he had against Texas Tech. I think there will be an effort to be more creative offensively for BYU. But with all that being said, I still think that BYU's path to a win requires too many variables to fall into their favor. I think it would require some turnovers from Texas Tech. I think it would require BYU going from 3 turnovers the first time to 0 turnovers in this game. I think it would require BYU having a much better running performance than what they had in Lubbock that first time around. A lot more than 6-7 yards for the game. That's the first part of this. It also, I think, requires Texas Tech stalling out. So you see where I'm going with this. There's too many things I'm asking to happen in this game for BYU to get it done. Therefore, I'll take Texas Tech to win. I'll take Texas Tech to cover. Final score in Jerry World, Texas Tech, your Big 12 champs, 31-17. And Texas Tech may now be in a position to have a bye in the first round of the college football playoff. And y'all, if that happens, I think they deserve it. So we'll see what happens there, but that'll be a lot of fun. And again, I just love the vibe of turning on the TV after you get your Chick-fil-A breakfast in or your coffee. Chick-fil-A, got to sponsor the show now, second reference, but neither here nor there. And turning that on and seeing Jerry World for a little noon Eastern kick. Good time. Last one on the docket here, the ACC title game. It's Virginia and it's Duke. Yep, it's Duke. All right, Virginia, 3-point favorite according to BetMGM. Virginia, you win and you're in. It's like that LeBron meme. Can't believe this is my life. The Who's, man, after knocking off Florida State early on in the college football season on that Friday night, have walked the tightrope, playing 17 overtime games, taking Chapel Hill to the 1-yard line overtime, goes to review. Virginia and Chandler Morris are there standing at the end of the Hunger Games that has been the ACC this year. Win and you're in. Pretty straightforward. Nothing else needs to be said other than that. Now for Duke, let's be honest, I don't know what happens for you if you win this game. I really don't. My gut says if Duke is your ACC champ, I don't believe they would be ranked higher than a JMU or a Tulane should those teams both win their respective conferences. So I think what you're living in there is probably 2 G5 teams in the college football playoff. Because the verbiage, and this is not to go too far off the rails here, we're still going to break this game down. The verbiage of the college football playoffs committee, auto bids is not, okay, we got 4 bids for the 4 power conferences and 1 bid for the G5. That's not how it works. It's the 5 highest ranked conference champions. So if Duke is a conference champ and ranked below those other 2 conference champions, they're not getting in. But hear me clearly. If you win your conference, life is just better. The water pressure on your shower is better. Your coffee is hotter. People are nicer to you. Your mom loves you more. Like, life is better if you just win your conference. Also, let's say this, too. It is a preseason goal for you to win the ACC. If you're Manny Diaz and you're trying to build Duke into a powerhouse out there in the ACC, you get to go take the recruiting pitch of, we just won the conference last year. We need you here to help us do it again. Derry Mensah's coming back for another year. He had a ridiculous season. Like, all those things are on the table if you can win the conference and have that labeling behind you, that momentum behind you, and then we'll let the college football playoff chips fall where they may if I'm Manny Diaz and the Duke Blue Devils. Matchup for me if I'm Duke, it lies on the perimeter. Because, y'all, this game was played in mid-November, right around 2 weeks ago, with 34-17 Who's in Durham. Big reason why, Derry Mensah did not have a big day at the office, and Virginia ran all over them. More on that in a second. But when you look at who Duke is as an offense, they're a 54% of the time throw the football team. They have not 1, not 2, not 3. They have 5 different individuals that average over 12 yards a catch on their roster. Cooper Barkay, a Harvard transfer, Ivy League stand-up, having a freaking season, man, almost 1,000 yards through the receiving at this point in time. And Darian Mensah right around 3,500 yards through the air, 28 touchdowns, 4 picks. The bottom line, that's where your strength is. Okay, you can try to mess around and run the football. You ran the ball for like 42 yards against Virginia the first time you played them. I don't love that whole formula. If you want to have that be your approach here against Virginia the second time around, be my guest. You have got to have something, if you're Duke, to keep Virginia honest up front. Because if they can just play light box, focus on your receivers that I just told you about, focus on Mensah in the pass game, I don't think you win this game. I think it's probably a rerun of what you saw the first time around. I just need something to keep them occupied in the run game. Just something to where play action still matters. And we're not just dropping back and asking Darian Mensah to go win the football game for us. I don't love that situation if that's where you live if you're Duke. So I just need something early. I don't need it all game. I just need something early to get us going if we're the Duke Blue Devils. Now, I say that, I still don't feel good about Duke's defense against Virginia. We talked about Virginia early on in the year, heading into the Florida State game, if y'all remember that breakdown. They are so elite at straining your personnel by playing 2 tight ends. Because if you're a defense, you see 2 tight ends out there, instead of a couple of receivers, you say, okay, got some big bodies on the field, they're probably going to run the football. And while Virginia does run the football at a really high level, all of their tight ends they play, from what I've seen, are pretty good threats in the pass game as well. So they have this flex of you have to honor us with the look that we're going to run the football because of the big bodies we got out here. But also, Chandler Morris and these tight ends, it's nothing for us to go play action and challenge you vertically either, and we can do that at a really high level. So you look at how Duke played them the first time, allowed over 200 yards on the ground. And here's the thing, y'all. Like sometimes the box score isn't always indicative of how the game went. You say Virginia ran for 200 yards. Well, do they have a couple gash plays that sort of just equated to them having 200 yards? Was it a deceiving 200 yards on the ground if that even exists? My answer is no. It was not a tricky 200 yards. It was not a tricky 34-17. Y'all, to keep it a buck, Duke got a pick 6 on a screen play that was like less than 20 yards that counted for one of their 2 touchdowns on the day. Like it was not a tricky 34-17 or a deceptive 200 yards on the ground. It was, we're more physical than you. You can't hang with us. Here we go. And so the path here for Duke requires some turnovers, and that's kind of the thing I want to side-eye here if I'm a Virginia fan. Chandler Morris has been a dog for you. The UNT transfer, he's been awesome all year long. He's brought juice to the offense. He's been great on the ground, been great through the air. However, my guy likes to cut it loose. Okay, he's got a little bit of that gunslinger to him. 14 touchdowns with 7 picks. He threw 2 picks the last time y'all played. That is when you played Duke 2 weeks ago. If you're going to be a live-by-the-sword kind of team with Chandler Morris, you also are potentially exposed to be a die-by-the-sword kind of team with what he likes to do, throwing the football around the yard. So if you're Duke, maybe you'd be a little bit opportunistic. Maybe Manny Diaz and the guys get a little bit aggressive. I'll be real. This line confuses me. When you beat them by 17 the last time you played and you're only favored by 3 points, and the last time you played it was in Durham. It wasn't like you played a neutral site or you played in Charlottesville. It was like, no, you beat them at their place pretty handily. And Vegas still is only giving Virginia 3 points. I'm looking for something to feel different about this game. I'm looking for something to make me see why that line is what it is. And maybe it's just the fact that Duke's played well the last couple of weeks, I suppose. Maybe this line is what it is because Duke just beat Wake pretty handily. I guess I would hear that. Looking at this game, though, here's the biggest thing. Virginia got after Darian Mensah, and they did it with 4 players. It wasn't like they brought exotic blitzes. It wasn't like they were super complex with how they applied pressure. They just rushed 4, got home a lot to the tune of 4 sacks. That plus what Virginia has been through the air and what Duke isn't on the back end, one of the worst secondaries in college football by the numbers. Maybe we see a scrappy Duke performance. Maybe Darian Mensah just puts on the cape and says, this is who we are. We're going to go find a way to get it done. Take your line and do whatever you want with it. We're going to win this game. Maybe that's the way it goes. That would shock me. And so I'm not really big into picking things that would shock me. I'll take Virginia to win. I'll take Virginia to cover. I think it's slightly closer than the last time they played. I'll take Virginia 31-21. And Virginia is your ACC champ. We love the G5 on this show, but unfortunately, there will only be one G5 team in this college football playoff. Virginia slams the door shut on that possibility by winning the ACC. So let us know in the comment section, man. What are your picks for conference title weekend? What are your takes, too, for some of these head coaching hires? We got even more movement now. We got Pat Fitzgerald to Michigan State. You got Bobby Chesney to UCLA. Like, it's it's moving and shaking time. We're also keeping an eye on the Kentucky job that just became available here in the last few days. Regardless, if it's happening in the world of college football, we're talking about it here. We appreciate y'all making the show what it is. For Cato on the ones and the twos, for myself, JD PicKell, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.